Good afternoon, everybody. DMGeezerjim here, doing another module review today. Oop, wrong panel. We are going to kind of touch on Queen of the Demonweb Pits, third edition, 3.5, I think it is. Revisit. Back in third edition, there was a series of Expedition of the Ruins of Castle Greyhawk. Return to the Keep on the Borderlands was prior to that. Expedition to the, Return to Temple of Elemental Evil, Return to the Tomb of Horrors. This was kind of an extension of that, kind of a revisitation of the classics. My previous video, we talked about Queen of the Demonweb Pits at a decent length, went into some good depth about it. Enjoyable module, good capstone for the GDQ series, without a doubt. If you're playing those modules as they are, or if you've adapted the D1 through 3 and the Q series to your own campaigns, great. You're probably having a wonderful time. If you've looked at them and you say, I really want to play around with Loth and with the Dark Elves, but I don't necessarily want to take that approach, that's where this one really shines. And honestly, as far as storyline goes, I'm probably going to get kicked out of the old man D&D Grognard Club, but I think Expedition of the Demonweb Pits is definitely one of the better story-driven versions of a Loth-based adventure. First thing the first major change that you have to keep in mind is with Q1, the player's intent was to face off with Loth. We kind of talked about it at the end of the last review. How there's a lot of verbiage that says if you play her correctly, you can't beat her. However, you can do this, this, this. There was methodology given to stat block her out and fight with her as a very, very powerful, potent non-player character. The BBEG of that series here, excuse me, let me flop back over. When we were looking at this module last week on the review, the party's ultimate intent was to square off with her, and the DM is given a lot of in-game and MacGuffinish mechanics to give the party a potential chance to, if not defeat her, at least survive the encounter chasing her off. The first transition you got to think of in Expedition of the Demonweb Pits, this is at the point in the timeline where D&D has codified that a deity, a god, a goddess, a power, whichever term you want to use, even a demigod in most cases, is an unassailable force. You can't kill them. And if you're facing a power on their own plane, in their own home, you're a blink of an eye from being dispatched and destroyed. The only reason you're existing is either A, they're busy, or B, they're amused. So that's the first thing. The party is not coming to the Demonweb Pits in this module to face off and beat Loth, okay? Quite the contrary, she's more of a background. Think of her as the Lady of Pain that makes this module work. Sigil, the Lady of Pain, is a being of such absolute power that no other gods can challenge her, keeping Sigil safe for your party to come in and out of. Loth is of the power base that, ironically, she's the stabilizing force within the module that makes sure things don't go out of hand for the party, okay? The Demon Web is where the module is staged. Loth is somewhat featured. Dungeon Masters, if you give this module a chance, promise you're going to find lots of places to really make her pop and really make her matter. But the most important thing is we are re-empowering her as a goddess. Demon Webs led a lot of people to believe the Queen of the Demon Webs, even though she's mentioned as the Drow goddess, there's a lot of pointing that says, oh, Drow worship a demon because her home is in the Demonweb Pits. She hangs out with demons. So there was a bit where Loth was actually ratcheted down to a demon. And honestly, I think she was listed in the Fiend Folio as her stat block was given in the demon block at that point in time as well. Q1, Loth is supposed to be a goddess, more likely a demon. Q3, unabashedly, she is a goddess. So, unassailable force. So why are we going here? Let me cover the plot first. It's easiest to comprehend and really understand how this module's laid out if we talk about the plot first. And this is where I do spoiler warnings, lots of talky warnings, all of that here. But Grazit, the demon prince of the triple realm of Azagrat in the Abyss, is the driving force behind this adventure. As all demons demon princes, demon lords, and demon princesses, and all that. All of the lords of a lair, um, they all have rivalries. They hate each other. Some are weaker than others. Some are stronger than others. Grazit happens to be one of the strongest, strong enough to actually keep and control three separate layers of the abyss as three separate layers of abyss that belong to him. Sometimes when that happens, the demon prince will control two and absorb it into one. He actually keeps them separate. That's pretty powerful in planar terminology if you're not familiar with that. So, demons have rivalries. Grazit's no different. No one necessarily likes him. A couple absolutely hate him. One of those is Orcus. The other one is Demogorgon. Demogorgon's got a different power base. Grazit's not ready to challenge that, but Grazit's ready to put Orcus down again. Yeah. Chronologically speaking, this would be the second time that Orcus can potentially be destroyed. But we'll get to that as we get to that. So, Grazit comes up with this plan, knowing that Loth is a resident of the Abyss, but a goddess, and approaches her with an offering to establish a demon council. The most powerful lords of their lairs can answer this council. Bound by her word and her law as a goddess, the council's actions would be required to move forward, so the demons could finally act in a unifying presence and end the blood war and move on with conquering the rest of the multiverse. Foolproof plan, right? Loth's not really interested. She's a goddess. She's deriving her power from petitioners and followers, which are mortals. So Loth's Demonweb, as we were looking at the, let me scroll back down to the art real quick for that. Apologies. I'll open up the art when I find it. But anyway, Loth's Demonweb, it's notorious for being connected to multiple planes as well as multiple material worlds, prime material plane worlds. Loth wants Faerun. Loth wants Oerth. Loth wants Eberron. Loth wants any world that she can attach to her web because she, as a deity, draws her power from the belief and worship of mortals. More of those that worship her, stronger she gets, right? So to her, immersing herself in the abyssal politics of chaotic evil demons fighting each other, it's beneath her. It's below her. It's not even on her radar. She doesn't care about the abyss any more than this is her home plane, this is her home lair, and I can build my web of power from here. So she brushes Grazit off. Go, boy, you're bothering me. I'm busy here. Go play with your friends. Grazit is a very smart, very organized demon. He steps away and does it anyway. Using his resources, his guile, his wit, and a lot of magic, he's able to send emissaries to all of the demon princes that are representatives of Loth, requesting their presence at a council. Okay, so God can poof demon out of existence. Okay, power cycles dictates that. Okay, so there's not going to be any of the demon princes or lords. If they go, they're going to go under the treaties of peace, or they're going to go be busy somewhere else during the council. That's established. So several of the demon princes and the demon abyssal lords say, "Sure, why? Well, let's go." You know, which lines up with Grazit's plan. So Loth starts receiving this information. Yes, we've agreed to your council. So this is the first step of Grazit's plan. Get the council together. Get it together under Loth's name, with or without her approval, because now she can't back down without looking weak. There's always been some tension in the Abyss. All of the demon lords, the abyssal lords, are jealous of Loth because she's a goddess. They're not. And they don't like her because she's a goddess, and they're not. But they fear her because she's a goddess, and they're not. So she's kind of occupied a strange space in the abyssal politics where no one's willing to cross her, but very few people will work openly against her, but her followers aren't going to have a lot of sympathy anywhere else. But the opportunity to, work with her in an alliance is going to appeal to any demon. Okay, she's stronger than me. She have my back. I have many people die. That's even on the most primitive thinking of Yunagu, the Knoll Lord. He's able to make that connection. Okay, so the first layer of the plot has been set down by Grazit. All the demons are coming. Shouldn't matter to anyone else at this point, but here's the second layer of the plot. Grazit needs to make sure one of, if not all three things happen. Number one, the council has to happen. Number two, Loth has to pronounce the council. And number three, Orcus has got to die. Those are the only three things he cares about. If none of them work out, they all still work out. If Loth refuses to pronounce the council, she's discredited in the eyes of the demons. She doesn't care about us. We don't need to listen to her anymore. Just stay out of her way. She stays out of ours. Fuck her. Excuse the language, but that's the first layer, right? Heck with her. If everything's an abject failure, all I've done as Grazit, all I've done is reinforced the dislike for Loth with the rest of my peers and possibly made an alliance or two here enough to go beat up Orcus. Okay? He has a sub-plan to make sure Orcus doesn't even show up. Whether it's through ambush, guile, trickery, or whatever. He's going to make sure a representation of Orcus isn't going to show up in himself. He knows that. Grazit's willing to risk it all to drop him on the spot, period. Orcus knows that. Orcus is going to send an emissary. Grazit's going to make sure the emissary doesn't get there. That way, he's got a couple allies. He disrespected us. Let's go finish that pig demon ghoul off and be done with him. Okay? Abject failure still results in Grazit gaining allies, gaining face, and probably stomping out Orcus. Middle ground failure is the council's formed, but Loth is in charge of it. Because Grazit wants to be in charge of the council. Okay? Loth is a goddess. He knows that at any point she says, okay, fine enough, I'll speak it into being, but it's mine. And everyone festers as they are because she's too busy with the material plane to care about the abyss. The abyssal politics. All she's going to do is pull troops as she needs them for her conquest, which still helps demons. So if she's in control of the entire council and using the forces of the abyss to further her work on the material plane, that only furthers the work of the demon lords anyway. So middle ground loss is still a win. Bottom loss is a win for Grazit. Middle loss is a win for Grazit. Big picture win is the council is formed. They all agree to it. The force of the demons, the force of personalities there, choose him to be the leader of the council, spoken into word by Loth. At which point he's in charge of the abyss. The major players, the major lords now answer to him through the council, putting him on almost like an Asmodeus type of a pedestal. So that's the win condition for Grazit. That's why all of this is set up. That's why this adventure is happening. If you've ever needed to know why, you need to know the plot, you need to know the big picture, there's the big picture. The ultimate goal from there is, if that happens, then it's a lose scenario for the rest of the abyss, for the rest of the worlds, for the rest of the multiverse. The only thing that keeps the demons of the abyss in check are the devils, the blood war. Most all of us have heard about the blood war as a DM, as a player, whatever. The eternal war that's raged from the beginning of time and hopefully will rage to the end of time, that's pitting lawful evil versus chaotic evil. Whoever wins comes out on top and has the potential to destroy everything else. So Grazit knows that the demons will never win the blood war because they cannot unite. They can't focus on a strategy. If Baphomet and Yeenagu show up on the same battlefield, their troops are going to fight each other before they ever get to the front. There's just that much chaotic energy. But if they're bound through a divine pact set forth by a goddess that they agree to, now Baphomet and Yeenagu's troops are going to not fight each other and do what they have to. So through the divine spark of Loth's pronouncements, all of the demons of the abyss are going to be compelled by a goddess in a unified direction, which will end the blood war and will eventually have the infinite number of the demons spreading throughout the cosmos, throughout the multiverse, ending existence. It is a big deal if the players, if Grazit wins. It may not be in their lifetimes. It may not be in 3 or 4 campaigns' lifetimes. But if that happens, that's what happens. So if you've ever needed a big enough plot to make sure your characters follow along with, it's part of this book. Okay, so the plot of Grazit has been covered. We kind of took a look at the Demonweb a little bit. Um, how do I? That's big. How do I get my players involved in it? It's actually pretty simple, but this is where I kind of flip to the let's talk as people screen. Some of it's going to depend on how you're handling dark elves in your setting. That's one of the major impeti maybe, the major motivators. Because as part of the plan, Grozit sees an opportunity to cause trouble, which is what chaotic evil Lords of the Abyss do. So using a lot of his resources, a lot of the stuff he has at his disposal, magic, illusions, succubi, messengers, call it whatever you need to call it, he starts spreading word that Lolth has called forth this great council of all the demon princes in order to call them to reinforce the Dark Elves to drive the surface world to its knees. So the impetus for the party is going to be completely based on the fact that the Dark Elves in your campaign become very active and very aggressive and start becoming pretty successful. Okay. The first encounter actually of this campaign book is driven by your party getting attacked by a couple Dark Elves and some zombie ogres that lead them on a merry chase into Sigil. We'll step by step that here in a minute. So, but the main thing to understand is if you're in a universe that is not seeing Dark Elves in that way, then either A, you need to add a cult, a sect of them that revert back to the old ways of Loth worship. And maybe they're misunderstood, however you need to handle that. If you're using your traditional Forgotten Realm, or standard, I can't say standard, traditional. If you're using standard Forgotten Realms, the existence of Menzo Berenzen is enough. Following the lore of the Forgotten Realms, even though it's not a absolute, it is still understood that there's a large community of Dark Elves that are Loth worshippers that aren't necessarily good people. So things can get active around, I guess that would be Silvery Moon, Sunderbar, Spine of the World type of area. The Dark Elves are going to get very, very aggressive. You can use it anywhere, but just kind of helping you tie it into how do I get my party involved is to get Dark Elf Loth worshippers active. Then you have to be any heavy group of Loth worshippers are going to get aggressive, get active, and become successful. So that's backdrop stuff. You can honestly start seeding that around level 4 or 5 of whatever campaign you're playing. This one dovetails really well with if you want to play Forgotten Realms, any of the Lost Mines, Dragons of Shipwreck Isle. I would probably say Princes of the Apocalypse would work relatively well with it, honestly, because that's going to explain why Zugtmoy and Juiblex aren't here. Doesn't work well with Out of the Abyss, because Out of the Abyss steals heavily from this book. Read the two side by side. You'll see what I'm talking about. Basically, they took Grazit's plot and gave it to a different person. So, but anyway, we can talk about that when I do get to fifth edition reviews finally. So, on to some art, on to some pictures. Enough of my face. The campaign book's going to stay in here. Third edition layouts are really kind of nice. They give you the information for the chapter or the section. Chapter 1, who, what, when, where, how, why, initial information for the combat encounters, and then we flip over directly to, at the end of the chapter, they have each of the tactical maps and the tactical situations laid out separately. So you have space to print this page out, keep it next to you if you're playing tabletop, or snip it, print it, keep it next to you if you're playing digitally. The artwork is decent. It's on par with any of the maps that we're getting for 5th edition. So if you have decent Photoshop skills or snip skills, notice how they're all slightly off kilter. That was a publication designed to make sure that we're not cutting and copy pasting the map out and dropping them directly onto a table or VTT. Can be handled just fine now if you have decent art skills, but nonetheless up to you. How you want to handle them. You can. I redraw them. I use Campaign Cartographer 3, so I just simply redraw the art assets into my software and go. But I like that each of the encounters actually has the positioning of the enemies, gives you the pertinent information right on the battlefield map, gives you tactical map details, what you need to pay attention to, gives you a setup, gives you tactics. If you're, a dungeon master, I know a lot of us is like, there's a lot of third-party information, and I'm one of those people as well, that tell you how to run combat. And it's useful information to have as a DM if you're not sure. Honestly, by this point, you're probably looking at going, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. Do it. Doesn't mean you have to set the encounter up this way. Maybe your group is really efficient, so you're going to split these two up into two different fronts and have them attack your group from a flank. Up to you. But the tactical maps are really useful. The information about the encounters are really useful, and it's separated into easy-to-use sections. I like this one in Expedition of the Ruins of Greyhawker. Very well-structured books. So, on to the meat of it. And it's very simple. Starts with this first encounter, and this is one of the books that you can actually make a word-for-word translation to, or not word-for-word, stat block to stat block translation to 5th edition. The challenge ratings for DC are going to be mostly similar. 3rd edition is a lot higher. You can balance as you need to, but it's pretty easy to use page by page for 5th edition, aside from the stat blocks. So the first thing that happens, your party gets attacked by a bunch of dark elves. Ogres, zombies, and dark elves. You, as the dungeon master, are told to make sure at least one of the dark elves, if not both, escape. When you get in that position where they're both about to die, make sure one of them disengages, run away, dash, misty step, darkness, whatever they have to do amongst their bag of tricks to get them away while everything else fights. Your party, but not escape so much where your party loses track of them, because your party wants to follow them to get to the second encounter. That's going to have 2 drow lizard riders and 2 riding lizards posting up as guards. So the party will follow the enemy into this windy cave and get attacked by 2 more. The survivor can die here. The survivor can stand and fight here. The survivor, odds are, don't let the survivor keep running. Let him run. As long as a dark elf gets out of here, as long as one of the drow gets out of this encounter, it leads directly to the gate room. Now, the gate room is set up simply for the party to come in here. Notice 1 square equals 5 foot, position of everything. Really useful maps, really useful tools. 3.5 translates content-wise very well to 5th edition. Party gets here, bad guys running down a couple stairs to an archway. There's a rock on a ledge, a big old, the crazy ass vulture demon thing. One of the early demons that people will run into that's guarding. As soon as the dark elf or elves are within line of sight of the demon, you need to make a big deal about the demon hustling out there to protect the dark elves. Okay? They're jumping in, they're getting in there to give the dark elves time to escape. You want to establish through gameplay mechanics that the dark elves are indeed allied with the demons. All the rumors are true. Holy crap. So you're establishing the stuff that you've been playing around in level 7 or 8 in background stories and rumors, manifesting that through gameplay mechanics early in the campaign. Cool? So that's going to proceed to chapter 2, which is Sigil. Now, tons of information available on Sigil. By the time, depending on when you watch this video, we might have the 5th edition version of Sigil available. Don't suddenly freak out and go, oh shit, I can't do this. I don't want to go to Sigil. Enough information here is given within this book to get you through what you need to within Sigil. You can make as much or as little of the time that your players are in the city as you want to. If the players enjoy Sigil, if you've never ran it before and you want to step into it, this is a great time to kind of dip your toes in the city as your party comes in and out of this Sigil a couple times. There's not necessarily anything driving as far as things to do here. Sigil at this point is barely a way station for your players. So if you want to add more to it, you certainly can, but it's not required. They have 1 encounter here. Let me pop back in real quick. Again, information is good. They give you several pages of descriptions about it. A decent map, serviceable enough to help you get your party around the city. Some demonstrations of how the city will look if you need to describe it, a quarter section view of it. No one's successfully mapped this city out. in a definitive way. It's interesting. It's like I said, think about it as a tire off of its rim, and the buildings take up the entire inside rim of the tire, or the inside of the wall of the tire. So the party's going to get here pursuing the drow, the escapees from the first chapter. Hopefully the demon delayed them just enough to where when they come through the portal, the drows know we're in sight. Because they don't have a key, the portal can instantly close behind them, or they can't. They can see the portal shimmering. They can see the weird coloration in the rock, but they can't get through it without a key. Okay. They'll instantly be approached by a swarm of cranium rats. These are part of something that's called the Us. Really trippy. A collective of cranium rats, a collective intelligence that can cast spells and likes to eat people. Creepy. Now, this is not necessarily set up as a combat encounter. This is an exposition encounter, okay? Because remember, everything that's been going on, the plot, that's all been happening, if you will, timeline-wise, when the party was level 6 pushing on level 7. A level or two before they get to this point in time. So when they get to Sigil, it's kind of a big deal. The demons this way, that way, the other, because it's going to take time and logistics for that many demon lords to get there. It's not like a show up tomorrow. It's a United Nations type of an event. So the waves and the repercussions should be going through Sigil, the City of Doors. The party will make their first contact here at the Styx Oarsmen with a gentleman named Rule of Three. Now, DM tip, Rule of Three is one of many children of Grazit, but one of the favored sons, a Cambion. Think of a tiefling as a mudblood, and a Cambion is a half-blood, as a demon is a full-blood, okay? Tieflings be tieflings. They could be generations removed from a Cambion, basically. So when they get to the Styx Oarsmen, they'll run into Rule of Three. Rule of Three this will take a little bit of exposition for you as a dungeon master. If your party goes through the city, the more time your party spends in Sigil, the harder it will be for them to get to this point. Be heavy-handed with Dark Elf attacks, with this, that, and the other. Make it obvious it's becoming a problem out here. The Loth worshippers are getting rounded up by the Harmonium, and the governors, the Hardheads, the Harmonium and the Mercy Killers are rounding up Drow Loth worshippers because it's getting so rowdy. And so make it present within Sigil to where when the next step comes up, it's kind of an obvious hook, okay? Because this is probably my biggest, the biggest issue for me in regards to the plot. You're depending on telepathically talking rats to give your party the next hook. I'm not going to rely on that. Rely on the environment. Give them a reason to get to the Styx Oarsmen, and then they're approached and put back on track. New in town, yada, yada, yada. Rule of Three is going to see them coming from a mile away. And honestly, let's be honest, they're not the only group that's being dispatched by this guy. It's find me, his dad says, find me some primes that can, some of the clueless that can get involved in this. That way, I always have the whole plausible deniability. Them damn Earthers, those people from Faerun can't help but to get up in here. Toril needs to get wiped off the face of the earth. We're going to put that first on the list once we get our council together, because they keep interfering with our crap. Play that how you need to. But yeah, that's the intent for the party, is now to become a tool of Grazit to make sure that what happens. Okay? So Ring of Three is going to approach him with a deal. Hey, I'll make you a deal. I'll get you home. This stuff out here, crazy. Y'all got no business being here. Yeah, if this is happening here, I can only imagine how bad it is at your homes. Great heroes such as yourself should return home and take care of it. Do me a favor. Favor for a favor. Gate keys aren't cheap. Pick up these couple items for me, and I'll assure that you return to your homes. Sure, cool, whatever. Tried and true. Simple MacGuffin pickup quests. If they say no, if they do this, that's one of the things I enjoy about the book. If There's no checks made. If, there's continuations of if-thens. If the party complies, then this happens. If they don't, then that happens. If they choose to do this, then you have this option if they do that. So there's a little bit more direction given in this particular this book to help you as a dungeon master kind of keep things moving along, because it is as much as I love it, it is a very railroaded adventure from point to point. This has to happen here in order for that to happen. That has to happen in order for that to happen. But the space in between and the space around each of those points is huge. Okay, so you have a lot of latitude to be creative if you need to keep your party moving around. At no point are we stuck in one particular room with one puzzle, with one key, with one finish to get through it. Otherwise, the game ends. That's not a thing in this one. Thank God. There are a couple that push button losses, if you want to call them that. So the party's going to go pick up the MacGuffins for Ring of Three. Next time when they come back, yeah, things have gotten really hairy. Thank you for bringing these back. I have one more task for you, and I'll send you home. I need you to go get these super badass demon-killing weapons. I can't go. I mean, people know who I am. I did some bad shit back in the day, but I'm trying to make up for it now. I've got another group of people that are gearing up to head down and take care of some serious business. They're getting some other stuff. Can you help me go pick up these? Simple thing, man, for people your skill level. There's this badass demon-killing sword on the in the Iron Wastes, and high in the boughs of Yggdrasil, the World Tree, is a demon-killing bow. Bring those back to me, please, 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 please. I'll reward you handsomely and send you home. And this is where, as a dungeon master, you get to play with your group's ego a little bit, play with your group's pride a little bit, and kind of lean into the, you're not, don't say you're not worthy without, even though that's what you're trying to hint at and imply at. Yeah, you guys are good enough to go get these weapons. You're not, I don't think you're strong enough to do what I need you to do. I've got a better group lined up for it, whatever. Yada, yada, yada. Because for Ring of Three and for Grazit, this is their true test. There are no other groups, or there may be other groups. That's up to you. That's just horse pucky to shove in your character's way to make them feel a sense of urgency, maybe. If your party's not ego-driven but task-driven, you don't have to go as far as with that. If they're a little bit more, we're the greatest people in the universe, this is another chance for you to kind of ratchet up the humbling aspect of the world that they're in. And yeah, that's cute that you think that. No, I need to get you guys home so you can deal with stuff that you're capable of doing. But get me these weapons and I'll make sure to send you something that'll help you on your world. Play that however you want. Lie. You're a demon. You're a Cambion. You're the son of Grazit. You're playing the son of Grazit at this point as a dungeon master. Lie through your teeth if you want, if you need to. If your people are coming from the from Greyhawk, ever heard of the Crook of Row? I know how I know where it is, and I'll get you a map to it if you get me these two things. I can't bring that up here. That's way too big, but that would be really useful on your world. Wink, wink. So prey on your party's desires, securities, and insecurities as a DM. I've always wanted to have this sword. I really wish that you'd give us this item. This is where you dangle that crap in front of them as a reward from this Cambion. You bring me these two demon-slaying weapons that we might need for a battle ahead of us to protect ourselves from the bad guys, and I'll give you what you want. That's where you lean into that, have some fun with that, whatever. It's not going to happen. He's not going to give me anything. He's lying through his teeth, and so are you as a DM. Just be good at it at that point, right? So, when they come back, then it is a big, oh, you are the greatest, this, that, and the other. So, because when they go on this mission, they get the two weapons. Number one, that gets those weapons out of an unassailable place for Grazit. His forces cannot go to the Iron Wastes. Iron Wastes actually is the home plane for Kostichichi, the lord of the demon prince of giants. Cool? So he needs to get the sword away from Kostichichi in case he shows up carrying that big ass sword. And the bow that's up in the boughs of the World Tree, Yggdrasil, Grazit, his troops can't go there. None of his people can go there. So he needs a party to go get that. If the party gets it, great. It's going to help them out. If the party fails, at least we know we didn't waste our time trying to send these fools to Lost Lair. Find me another group of dudes. This is their tryout for Grazit, okay? And if the party doesn't want to take it, then things continue decaying around them until maybe Rule of Three desperately gives them what they need. I'll give you this now, and I'll give you something else later if you go get this. Bait them into it. But yeah, this is a second point of the railroad aspect of this adventure. As much lateral movement as there are certain conditions that have to be met, specific things that have to be done to move the adventure forward. Good creative DM, good writer can kind of sidestep that, use your own MacGuffins as you will, but understand that that's part of this the adventure design here. So once they come back with the weapons is where things get interesting. We were talking about the expedition to the Demonweb Pits. That hasn't even been mentioned as part of the anything up to the players up to this point. Now it is. They've come back with the weapons. Woe is me, woe is me. Yes, here's your reward. The heroes that I sent failed. Apparently you guys are more proficient than them. Good on you. Hey, cozy on up. All of a sudden you're my number one guys. I must admit I was hoping that they would to equip them with those weapons so they could go on a scouting mission into the demon webs. Because if the rumors are true and the demon queen is truly uniting all of the demon princes, then the multiverse has to know, and I have to have proof. And you have to go get this proof for me. Sure, buddy. Can we keep the weapons? Oh, of course you can keep the weapons. So now the party is suddenly going into Loth's home turf. We're sending them to the demon web finally. And again, the stuff I'm scrolling through here, layouts for 3rd edition, words first, combat encounters second. Each of the tasks that Ring of Three sends them for is going to put the party in a fight. One of them, ironically, is going to put them in position where they're facing off against some angels, some archons, the guardians of the tower. They're aware of what's going on. The celestial liars are aware of what's going on. So it's a side thing. It's not a major... the impact of the Guardians of Good saying, oh, the player characters are helping the demons, yeah. If you want to lay into that, you can, but it is at that, other than this point and one other conversation, there's no impact of the good aligned gods or the good aligned planes coming into this. So if you feel obligated to tie that in there, here you go. Maybe your lawful good paladin gets wrapped up because he gets... this is none of my business. Well, now you've been accused of it, so you have to clear yourself. Humbart and Granada will lead into an encounter with unassailable archons that will chase the party out, basically. The mercenary Yugoloths are here to just track the party a little bit, jump on the party, cause them some trouble. I think at this point they're actually trying to... that's right, they're picking up the second thing. So if they end up meeting the Dabu, and the Dabu gets hurt, the Lady of Pain can get in. But if the party beats back the Yugoloths, they continue on their business. It's just kind of an ambush encounter. Now, the Nicanaloth is a different thing. Angry Jackals is the third of the MacGuffins before we send them to the World Tree. So yeah, quick encounters. Now, Yggdrasil, World Tree, and Beyond, Chapter 3 is going to focus on a lot more extraplanar travel. If you're a fan of the World Ash, hey, you get to pull up your most entertaining lore that you want. This is where I say, if you want to expand or connect, and you don't want to use Sigil, you can use Yggdrasil instead. Okay, because sometimes Sigil is a big nasty thing to get your head around. Once your party goes from Sigil to Yggdrasil, providing you, as long as you provide them with the directions and the gate keys, they can use the World Tree to get around for the rest of what they need to do for the rest of the adventure, aside from 2 check-ins back in Sigil. So a different mode of transportation. We take the adventure outside. A lot of information given, but not a lot of stuff is going on here. They need to go to 3 points on the tree. Couple extra encounters given just to liven it up, just to make your characters feel that they're on a tree that's got branches that are 100 feet wide, 150 feet wide in places, with shrubs in its own pond, almost its own biome. A lot of fun to play with it. Some information given, but yeah, Yggdrasil, this chapter is just a transit point for the adventure. This is where with the wide open spaces to play with, this is one of those points where you have that latitude as a dungeon master. Not going to spend a ton of time here because honestly, there's not a lot of time required to be here. The party has to fight the squirrel people or convince them that they're not evil to make their way through another trap, the branchlet walks, basically a bunch of giant freaking tree tentacle things, an oversized roper that tries to eat the party before they finally make their way to the to get the bow. The demon quelling sword is simple, man. They go into this one tower at the top of a pinnacle, kill 2 frost giants, and leave with the sword. So yeah, one stretch of encounters through the world tree. Again, let me zoom in. These quick little, these green looking encounters, these are actually designed to be on the branches or within the boughs of the world tree. So you get to have a little bit of fun on that. You get to make sure to remind your party that, yeah, at any point in time, I can kick you off this thing. You fall who knows how far. I'm kidding. You don't necessarily want to do that, but you can play up into that if you want. So, like I said, I'm doing a quick scroll on here because this is a connective point. There's as much or as little as you want, but there's only 2 required things here. Get the bow from up top, get the sword from the Iron Waste, come back to Sigil. Boom, done. Back to chapter 4, which isn't going to actually be in Sigil. It's going to be our first trip to the Demonweb. The Demonweb itself. Remember, as I said a little bit ago, they get the sword, they get the bow. Rule of 3 makes a big old deal of, wow, you guys are super cool. You're the ones, you're the best that I've seen lately. Can you go to the Demonweb and scout it out? So this is your first trip to the actual Demonweb. First, you can see the difference in the map layout versus the Classic. And while the Classic had kind of a fun maze-like charm to it, and I really I like it, this definitely has a more of a spider-webby feel to it. You can see how much 20 years of print and skill can change a difference out. Downside is it's a little bit more abstract as far as your distancing your feet, so you need to do a little bit more planning there. The Demonweb does have some connections to some of the places that might be familiar from the first one. Care City, Aralai Sinlu, a couple other ones down into the fog, portal to the Red Forest, up to the Spiral Desert, the Iron Wastes, so on and so forth. Encounter areas are listed with a alphanumeric indicator. Each of the connecting points is slightly detailed. Not much more detail than was given in this book. One thing I will say in respect to Q1 versus the Expedition, they did write this in mind of Q1. For example, Care City and Aralai Sinlu seem to have advanced in the timeline a number of years along what was kind of predicted or notated in Q1. So there are some nods and respect given. There's nothing in the expeditions to the Demonweb Pit that's going to invalidate anything in Q1, obviously, other than stat blocks. If you want to use a spider ship, you can still use the spider ship. That can be where you can use the this part of it as the final ascension of Loth's web if you prefer. It's up to you. You can absolutely use the 2 interchanged with each other. Use one to spice up the other, use the other to spice up one, whatever. The plot lines are significantly different, though, so keep that in mind. Getting to this point in Expedition to the Demonweb Pit was dramatically different than getting to this point in Q1. So keep that in mind. Now, information given about the Abyss. Some of this stuff you can ignore because we're 5th edition, not 3rd edition. Some of the stuff you might want to homebrew to reinforce how ooky and spooky it is in the web, in the outer web. Teleportation keys. It talks about the key system need to move each door. Lots of grab MacGuffins here. Lots of find this. You can go there. Kind of a traditional thing. There's not a lot of hand waving. If your party, in some cases, if your party can't find the key, they can't go through the door. So plan accordingly. You know your party way better than I will, or the party that you're going to prepare this for way better than I will. So if you know your group has a potential for self-sabotage in certain situations, you might need to hand wave some extra parts in, some extra MacGuffins, some extra passes for your particular group. But yeah, there's lots of internal encounters given here. The arrival chamber. I like the art for this. I love that the web gets more of a curved web, weirdish, ooky kind of feel instead of the straight hallways. Although I'm not gonna lie, the flat, straight soles and faces swirling in the floor had some charm to it too. So take your whichever you prefer for the Demon Web and run with it. Sure, it's your version of it. But there are distinct differences between the designs, the graphic, both the art presentation and the architecture. Everything is right angles. 100-foot by 100-foot room, 60-foot by 60-foot room, 20-foot by 20-foot hallways, and you get into a lot more of an organic feel with the expedition to the Demon Webs. The Fane of Eklavdra is an expansion on the same thing from Q1. I think it's actually a slight upgrade. Oh, no, it's going to be D3. I'm not going to scroll that far back. Sorry, guys. Otherwise, I'll go way down rabbit holes. I'm doing really good about not going too far down rabbit holes lately. So, yeah, we're scrolling a little bit quick here. But each of these is represented on that map with an alphanumeric designation that's going to tie into this, giving you information about the location. If it's a combat location, it'll point you to C encounter A1, C encounter EL, whatever, okay? This is similar to Q1 in that you can do a lot outside of the Demon Web with these worlds if you wanted to. So if you enjoy if you want to do Vault of the Drow because you never got to do it before, you can certainly include a side venture into that from the Demon Web. It may not necessarily have to be from Arelai Sinclu into the Demon Web. It could be the other way, and et cetera, et cetera. So this guide gives you information to make the outer areas a little bit more entertaining, engaging, without making them so defined that you don't have some room. As a matter of fact, if you really want to make the most out of them, you need to use a little of your own creativity, but keep scope in mind. Because always remember, they still have to go to the next point to move the adventure forward. So if they've gone so far over here onto this plane and up, down that one, and back over to here and there, and then they pop back over here, they still got to get up here to move forward. So keep that in mind as you plan these extra dimensional jaunts. Cool? Before you go all too much Quantum Leap or Twilight Zone on them, you still got to bring your party back, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But some good stat blocks. Your typical combat encounters are listed here. Tactics, numbers, stats, CR numbers. Good stuff. Good information to liven up the Demon Web. Again, you can take these encounters and drop them into Q1 if you feel like you want to. Or you can take some of the stuff out of Q1 and drop it into the Demon Web if you want to. There's nothing saying that you can't add some extra tunnels to that map on your own home turf. There's nothing says you can't have a couple extra intersections as well. So this is the first trip, and honestly, at this point, the party is just trying to get here, scout out some information, which is listed in the different encounters, and then make it back to Sigil in one piece. Okay? That's it. We're in and out, Morty. Just nice and quick, man. Oh, by the way, the 10,000 spider swarm. This is where I do have to give you a content warning. If you have anyone in your group that is squeamish, if you have anyone in your group that is arachnophobic, if this is a genuine trigger for anyone of your players, you may not want to play it. You may not want to. You may just tell them, hey, I don't want to be gross, and I know you're not going to like this, but we're going to the demon queen of spiders, the goddess of Ook. So make sure that I'm not trying to joke. I'm trying to be serious here. Make sure that you're checking in with your players, not just this, with other content. This is a perfect moment to remember what sounds really cool in the moment might kind of suck in the long term. If you go lay so heavily into 10,000 spiders crawling over your party, and they can't do anything about it without hurting themselves and swarm into the body of a helpless or dead creature into its mouth. Inhabiting the creature requires a minute, and then it explodes into a bunch more. You don't want to do that. If your people freak out over that, you don't want to play that for them. So make sure that you're being clear. If a loth-touched spider swarm inhabits a dead body, it restores animation to the creature and controls its movement, effectively transforming it into a zombie the appropriate size for as long as the swarm remains inside. Yuck. Um, if the victim is immobilized or anything happens to the body, the spiders just start eating the body out and pop out. That's grody. That's crazy. Make sure that you're paying attention to that sensitivity of that topic. Okay, that's not just that, but any topic. That's a good example of this might be a trigger thing. Things that you talk about in your session 0. Anyone got a problem with spiders? Yeah, I hate them. Out of character, you're going to be upset if I cover you with 10,000 spiders, literally because it's the encounter. I don't want to do that. Okay, then we need to talk. And joking aside, there are campaigns that aren't the right fit for players. There are players that aren't the right fit. It goes both ways. It's okay to say, hey, I'll catch you on the next bounce. Or if it's so bad that no one wants to do it, be upfront with them so you don't waste time getting here and everyone's like, that's bullshit. You ambushed us. That sucked. So anyway, sorry. The next section is kind of complex. I'm going to try to accelerate here. I did a forewarning as we long. From there, you take your party from the Demonweb. As they escape, they think they're going back to Sigil. Nuh-uh. They're going to the city of demons. They're going to Zeletar. They're going to the capital city of Grazit, of the Azagrath Triple Realm. Your party, while they're here, will... Again, this is a big area that has 1 or 2 defined goals. Basically, this is where they're set up to make sure Orcus's ambassador doesn't get there. Whether they kill the ambassador or make a deal with the ambassador, Grazit's goal is that Orcus's ambassador does not get there and the party gets the invite. Okay, this is where the next level of the machination comes in. So up to now, the party's been working for the greater good. They're not even really aware of the big plot. Now, at this point, they're getting put in a position where they have to go to the council. You handle things a little bit in Zeletar. It's a pretty big city with multiple connections to multiple layers of the abyss. Probably a dozen or so encounter locations given, but only a couple of required interactions to move your story forward. This is probably one of the weaker structured in that it's going to be a challenge for you to make it obvious what your players need to do next. It's going to be very easy to either overwhelm them with demonic force because they're in a demon city, or make it just a background built of buildings, just a flat stage, because you don't want to be too heavy-handed with it. So spend some time with this chapter if you're going to run this. Read through it. Make sure you as a dungeon master understand what the city's about. What are the points of interaction? What are the points of interest? Where are the major dangers here? How will the party where can the party get tripped up and screwed up? And then kind of plan the plot lines for here accordingly. The book gives you something right here, plot lines. If they don't hire a guide, they're screwed. Ring of 3, the rule of 3, their ambassador, he's not involved here, but make sure that the party kind of figures out how to hire a guide. Make sure they're not walking around with the mace of St. Cuthbert over one shoulder and their holy shield, their +3 shield with the symbol of Lathander on their other arm. That's going to draw some attention into them. If things get crazy, things get crazy. But if things get crazy, things keep getting crazier and crazier, and then things get out of the player's hands as a Nalfeshi and a Baylor or two show up to restrain the party, throw their butts in jail. Okay? So the plot point page here is important for you to understand. Obviously, the failure to meet the ambassador is covered here as well. Some side quests are given if you want to add some flavor to the city. This is similar to the section on Sigil that we opened with. So think about it this way. Whatever approach that if you've never run Sigil before, whatever approach you used when your party got to Sigil, if they enjoyed it, use the same thing for Zeletar. If they didn't enjoy it, learn from that mistake and either add some more side encounters, add some fluff, add some interactions off the beaten path to make Zeletar pop a little bit more than you did with Sigil. Sigil's your training run. Think about that. Sigil's your practice run for Zeletar. It's going to be almost the same basic idea. Crazy ass, weird, unique city in an alien environment that your players have no business in being, don't know how they got here, and just need to get the GTFO to the next spot. Okay? But yeah, all they're trying to do here is get the ambassador, find this bone naga, get the letter from them, the entry document to get them into the Demon Council, and jet. So once they get to that point, it's your job now to chase them out. They'll have to meet someone at the sign of the Black Heart. That's where the Naga is hanging out. It's a nice looking inn. You know, we're looking at that. It's like, dang, that's kind of pretty looking for a demon inn. Razor Vine everywhere. A Night Hag that has a penthouse here. Lamia's her. Yeah, you know, could be fun. Could be an interesting thing. But yeah, a demon bar. The sign of the Black Heart. And they've got to get in here, meet the Bone Naga guy, and get out with their gear, the ambassador, right here. So and if they come in the front door, it's going to be a fight. But information's given for them to do that. That's the ultimate target when they're in the city. When they're in Zeletar, they need to get out. But once they get out, obviously they're going to get chased out by a big angry mob of demons who's figured out that fleshy people are here and go. If you want to have, this is, again, if you're into using RP instead, if they don't want to fight their way into the penthouse, they can maybe make a deal with the 2 succubi that'll sneak them in. Or they can attack succubi, steal keys. Up to you, however you want to manage it. This actual encounter is pretty dense, but there's a lot of option given for you as a dungeon master. There's a lot of opportunities for your players to handle it differently, and most of the information is given for that to back you up on it. Very well prepared encounter. Chased out the city is just a mob encounter, man. Everyone's just trying to chase the party, eat them up, and get them out. So getting long on time here. We're good. We're almost at the end of it here. Not really at the end of it. So we get back to the Demonweb from Zeletar. They have at this point, they actually have the golden ticket. They have Willy Wonka or Queen Loth's golden ticket to get into the final countdown, right? The big contest. And at this point, everything has been working in Grazit's favor. Okay? Orcus isn't showing up. He's going to look bad in front of the rest of the Demon Lords. More than that, Orcus is sending a bunch of mortals, possibly a lawful good cleric, depending on your party's build, into the Demonweb as his ambassadors, according to the pass. He is just flipping us off. He is spitting in our faces. The moment we get out of here, what say we go kick his ass? F yeah, hell yeah, I'm with you. So, Grazit's won step 1, the moment the party walks in the front door. Okay? Nothing the party can do, and honestly, nothing the party should really care. I mean, Orcus is just Orcus, right? You know, I mean, one less demon prince ain't a bad thing, unless you want to spin that off into your own yarn, which you have the space for later. Number 2, Loth has allowed mere mortals not once but twice to penetrate her lair, taking valuable artifacts from each of us, as he points at Castici, because that's where the big sword came from. And she can't even protect her own lair. Maybe she's not as all-seeing and all-powerful as we thought she was. Now, because Loth is bound by her own word that anyone that dispenses violence will be met with violence, that she will kill anyone that tries to settle any disagreement through violence. She can't even, like, punch Grazit in the face for that. Interesting thing when you start taking divine dynamics into play, right? Okay, so now Grazit is looking kind of like a genius all of a sudden as we've gotten to the upper, even though it's called the Demonweb Pits, it's actually, you go down and then you go up to get to the next point of the Grand Chamber. So the Pits has some interesting encounter areas. This is actually where if they need to go do a favor for Orcus, or if they need to escape from everything, there's a portal that goes to Thanatos. That's why I said there might be a tie-in for Orcus later. There's actually a portal to Mount Celeste up here. Everything else is just guard monsters and guard dog and encounters. You really don't want to rag your party out too much before this final council. Let me put that in there. This is thick. This is heavy. This is going to be hard. Make sure that if your party... Make sure they get a long rest in before they get to the Demonweb Pits themselves. Period. The end. There's no more friendly space. This is in 5th edition terms. They're not likely to get a short rest once they hit this point. It's a mile between traversal points. It's heavily guarded. This is the event of a millennia as the greater demon princes of the abyss have all shown up in one place. These are chaotic, evil, hyper paranoid, hateful beings. There's going to be guards all over the place, man. If you're a Dragonlance fan, think of the big dragon army meeting at the end of DL15. It's that kind of thing, man. Colors and emblems and all of that. So as long as your party has the golden ticket, they can move through unharassed by literally anyone. But if they start anything, they can receive stuff. So this is a balancing act. Make sure they're rested, they have their resources, because from that point forward, this could possibly, that was going to be probably the last chance that they're going to have, unless they sneak back to the upper part of the web and make their way to one of the outlying material planes for a security point. Okay? Should go without saying, and I should have said to begin with, teleport, plane shift, astral. None of that stuff works here, unless Loth deems it. Unless she wants you out, then she'll let your astral recall spell work. If she wants you to stay, then you can do a wish spell and you're not going anywhere. So you got to be heavy-handed with that kind of stuff when you're in the domain of a goddess, right? Grand Council Chamber. This is where I want to focus, and this is we're going to finish up the review here in a second. I'm lying. So bad. This is a big, thick one. I do apologize. It's been long, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So your party has arrived at this point with the golden ticket, okay? Let me zoom out just a wee bit. You'll see all of these letters, and I'll zoom in and out. All of these letters, all of this and that, and then we look over here on the key. You have the names of all these people. Zoom in just a little bit before it gets too pixelated there. Sorry. Aspect of Baphomet, Demogorgon, Grazit, disguised as Malkinthet, which is the Queen of Succubi back in the day. Aspect of Obox Ob, who is a Elder Evil, an Oberlith, something that existed before even demons. Pale Knight, same thing. Yinagu, Fiendish Minotaur. Costachichi is got an ambassador here. Pazuzu's got one here. Bebelith Demon, Vrox, Stone Golems, Oculus Demon, a couple non-player characters, Succubus, a consort of, yeah, a lot of stuff, man. Giant hyenas and all that crazy shit here, man. So this is a packed house. Let's remember a couple things. Number one, your party is level 12, maybe 13 by this point, okay? So they're not meant to come in here and just go whole hog and start slinging fireball and lightning bolt. If they do, they die. Let them. I mean, if they're that foolish, it's going to happen. It is what it is. But hopefully your party's smart about it. They have the golden pass because they are the ambassadors of Orcus. When they arrive, they have the same rights and privileges as every other demon prince and obligations, as in the treaties of Loth stating that. Real quick, before we get too far off of that. A guide to Loth's Web is a nice little handout you can give your mortals, give your players so they can understand stuff. The Ambassador's Map is something that they will be given to find their way through the Demon Web after they get their the golden ticket. This is their golden ticket. Styx Oarsmen, this can get them, they find this in the Styx Oarsmen. So this is a fun module. Should have done this earlier. There's some visual aids that can help your party out. So on and so forth. Some stuff. Merchant Charter of the Free City to the Demon Lords from Loth. Show this past to my guardians. Duel if you must, but those attempting to settle old grievances here will be banished from my plains. During this time, we must set aside blood feuds amongst ourselves and consider a greater purpose. So on and so forth. So the party's going to see that right there. Or hopefully, if you give it to them. They may not have, because I completely forgot to show you guys that stuff. My bad. Some nice visual aids in there. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get back to the council chamber. So we can kind of talk about the end game for this as what the players are facing, what you're facing as a dungeon master. So Grazit has everything where he wants to have it, okay? Couple things in prep that you need to make sure that have been established by this point or prior to this point, or some very fast history, religion, arcana checks. Your party should know who likes who and who hates who here. Your party, believe it or not, has the opportunity to engage in dialogue with the aspects of the demon princes and the other ambassadors, because they are ambassadors for Orcus. Despite who they are, despite what they look like, despite what they're carrying, they have the golden ticket. And by divine right of Loth's, by the divine purpose of Loth at this point, they have the right to speak as Orcus would. So they can negotiate, they can treat, they can threaten, they can cuss, they can do whatever they want as Orcus's representative through this council. So what are we trying to do at this point? Okay, I'm trying to win as a dungeon master. I've already won. As long as this council continues forward and the charter is spoken by Loth's archon, by her voice, then it's binding forevermore. The dread aspect of Demogorgon is on the pulpit, so on and so forth. All of that kind of stuff. So your party has a limited amount of time to get in here and break up the council. Every demon lord every lord of the abyss, every demon prince, every ambassador that walks away from the treaty is another gasp of breath for the multiverse. If it gets down to 2, maybe 3 of the aspects, then it's not going to matter. 3 can't do anything against everyone else, even if Loth is binding it by its word. But if the other thing is, if you can stop the voice of Loth from speaking this, then the pact of the Demon Council does not ever exist. It can't form, and everyone is free to go about their way. So there are some combat resolutions. The party cannot get engaged by anyone else, and they start a fight. Whoever they start a fight can fight back, but no one else is going to jump in because Loth will blow everyone to hell at this point. Yeah, it's just my aspect, but it still sucks. It still hurts. And I don't want a goddess pissed at me. Even a demon prince is not going to be happy with a goddess being pissed at them. So there's that challenging aspect there. So the setup at this point is how have you provided information for your party? This is kind of a useful section here. The allies and the enemies, the missing lords, the ambassadors. This is going to tell this is telling you in regards to the timeline of events. The peace pact is the first thing. Several of the lords are not there. Zugtamoy, Juiblix are busy doing other stuff even during this timeline. Ambassadors for a few, a couple princes that are here, the Lord of Bulls. Each describes each of the aspects of the deep abyssal lords that are here, and then talks about their allies and enemies for you, the dungeon master. If you're not up to speed on your abyssal politics, don't worry. It's reinforcing it here when it matters the most. Who hates who likes who's going to be willing to betray who at the worst time. So you have your allies and enemies there. And as your party interacts with each of the groups, each of the, whether it's the aspect or it's the ambassador, information is given for you to handle the encounter, whether it be violently or whether it be verbally. Okay, for example, if your party got the demon quelling sword, which they did earlier, and they approached the ambassador of Kostichichi, they're going to see the sword and know that you stole it from them. So all of a sudden, the ambassadors of Kostichichi are going to kill you or try to kill your party. No one else will jump in. Your party's going to have to fight their way through that, but that's one less person signing the pact. One less demon signing the pact. And more importantly, your party didn't initiate combat, so they didn't break Loth's rule. Baphomet, etc., etc. He cares about nothing but killing Yinagu. It's all he cares about. So if your party rolls up, it can be that simple. If your party rolls up and talks to the giant knoll, Yinagu, first, Baphomet ain't going to have a damn thing to do with him. He don't care. Screw you. I hate that thing. I'm going to eat you. I'm going to kick his butt, so on and so forth. Right over here. Okay, so keep that in mind right there. These two groups here hate each other. Yinagu and the gigantic hyenas, Baphomet and the super minotaurs don't like each other. Whoever the party approaches first is automatically off their list second. So that's one of the things to make sure that you've read through these F12 through F18 and understand what's the goal for each of the demons. Why are they here in this council, and how can your party use that to fracture the council? The win condition for the party is either A, making sure none of the demons sign the pact, or B, making sure that Loth's voice cannot speak forth the pact. There's gradients in between, but anyway. So yes, this is information for you to really need. You need to have your head around it before you get to the end of it. You need to understand what's going on with it. Almost anything will lead to either another dialogue or directly to a combat encounter. So the final reading of everything kind of comes through here. The countdown to the pact will begin. A 10-foot tall drow female walks to the audience chamber and climbs the throne. When she sits, everyone kneels. And kneeling whip priestess, the Bebelith, and the commander surround her. Grazit shows himself and bows down before her, and this is the aspect of Loth. She begins to speak aloud the words of the Pact of the Spider Queen in the dark speech. Each word she speaks literally hangs in the air in front of her, creating a black stain on the universe that slowly fades into the demons below on the main floor. Each word is like a twisting knife in your ear, painful to hear. The envoy of Loth continues speaking, quickening the pace of her chant. Okay, so there's some spell checks made here. If Loth completes the spoken pact, taking 6 rounds to do so, she and the demon lords are bound by it. In addition, the conclusion of the pact acts like a banishment spell against all creatures not native to the abyss. So any creature that's not of abyssal nature is banished immediately as well when this pact is spoken. So your party may pop out, and it might be like the damn Avengers Did We Just Lose moment as they're standing in the streets of Sigil or wherever people came from, and all of the, yeah, it could be a mess. Take a little while to unwind, but all of a sudden, access of non-natives to the abyss has been shut off. At least as you're alive. You can still die and come through, but yeah, there ain't no one's coming in the abyss anymore to mess with their shit once that thing is done. That's a big deal for any multiverse. Okay, big consequences for a failure there if she completes it. Now the second thing is the battle royale, getting out alive. So there's some information given here for you as a dungeon master. Great writing in this book, giving you multiple scenarios, multiple solutions for each scenario. But you know what? We're pushing all this longer than I normally want to give here. There are some future adventures. There are some tie-ins. There's getting out alive. Plenty of information to close out the adventure. But yes, I really enjoy the writing of this book. I enjoy the presentation, whether you're using it as an adventure, and it's a very good adventure, or you're using it as a source book to build around or to fluff up your other one. Expedition to the Demonweb Pits is an outstanding module for content. It is going to take some work mathematically. 3rd edition is probably one of the hardest to transfer over to 5th edition in regards to the appropriate challenge levels. A skeleton is a skeleton is a skeleton, but we're not talking skeletons anymore. We're talking Bebeliths, we're talking succubi, we're talking Glabrizus, we're talking Mesoloths, higher level creatures. Most of those are represented well in 5th edition, so that's the plus side, is the majority of the stuff that's going to pop up in here, you'll find something in 5th edition to transfer it over, drop it straight in your encounter, builder, pull it out your players, your DM's got monster manual, whatever your source is, the majority of creatures you here will find. You are going to have to create some NPC blocks for like priests, priestesses, high-level wizards, necromancers, things of that nature that will be part of the campaign. So there is going to be a lot of prep, contrary to thinking it's a newer module would be pretty good. It's a newer module, that's true, but there's going to be a lot of prep involved in making sure that it dovetails in. Number one thing, remember, to sum it all up, is this is a 8th level starting point. This is something that you would play into. Number 2, it's all based around abyssal politics and big demonic plots that your party's never going to be even aware of till the very last minute. For you to be able to make that matter, you've got to understand it, invest in it, believe in it, and plant seeds for this prior to the start of the campaign, of the adventure, so to speak. Number 3, it does have a negative outlook still on Dark Elves as far as putting emphasis on the worshippers of the Dark Elven worshippers of Loth going on rampages, doing this and that. Do what you want to with that. If that bothers you, then make it a a consolidated effort of multiple races that worship Loth, and you can go just fine with that. It's completely up to you. But be aware that that's an understanding and an expectation for this module. Very linear in that certain things have to happen to get to other points, but a lot of conditional information given to help you make sure that things happen to move you to the next point. A big, huge, raging, monstrous story to play around with, kind of in a matter of sense, it kind of breaks your brain. I prefer this one to Q1. There, I said it out loud. Mainly because Q1 requires so much more effort on my part, or did in the old days, to make sure my players got here. Why are we going through all of this story-wise? That's a lie. When we were 13 years old, it was just a cool map with a crazy-looking chick that had lots of monsters. Let's go fight her. Yeah, it was that simple then. Not a lot of story that was realized at the time. There are tons and tons and tons of roots in this thing. Expedition to the Demonweb almost goes the opposite direction. While it certainly gives you a lot of lateral room to build with, lots of paradimensional space, 50 plus encounters to fight, you're definitely limited to a pretty linear path of progression to move the story forward. And no matter, it's almost set up like the players are going to lose no matter what, unless they find the perfect win condition, which is to not have the pack spoken out loud entirely. So I am going to close out here, though. DMGeezerjim, finishing up Expedition to the Demonweb Pits. Campaign adventure for levels 8 to 15 would be my estimation for 5th edition use. Strong, well-written, well-produced module. Lots of good information, lots of tactical tips for you as a dungeon master. A lot of alternatives that are given in print to help you move things through. Even if you don't ever play it, I would definitely recommend reading it, picking it up for a couple bucks and reading it as a dungeon master. It'll probably serve as a great source of inspiration, if nothing else. But hey, thank you guys so much for joining me for this episode. We'll be back soon with more reviews. Check out my intro to DMing. Well, if you're watching this, you probably don't need an intro to 5th edition DMing. But if you do, check out that series. We're also working on our Planescape settings as well. But yes, likes, follow, subscribe, share with any of your friends that you think that might be interested. Love to have some support over on Patreon. I'm live every day over on Twitch. You can find all of those links in the on the About stuff here on this YouTube page. But thank you. Appreciate your time. Have a good day.